afternoon, all the Yiddish kinder, hello to all of you. Did you take a look at the question sheet, Chavre? Did you see the sheet of questions? I'm going to assume that that's an affirmative. I'd like you to take a look at the question sheet, and I also would like you to get Chumashim, because I'm going to do something a little bit different today than I normally do in these classes, and that is that the entire Parsha class is on one pasuk. The entire Parsha class is on one pasuk. It's the first pasuk after Sheni in Bahar. It's the first pasuk after Sheni in Bahar. That's the deal. Okay. The pasuk says it's Kapitel Chaf Hey pasuk Yudalit, and I really would like for you guys to get Chumashim, because we're going to be doing the Chumash with the Rashi. Okay. This is a different kind of Parsha class. It's not. I have a point. My point is going to be question 12, if you look at your question sheet. But until question 12, it's a very technical, it's a very Choshe Mishpah type Parsha class. I'm not giving you some kind of philosophy or exotic stuff. I'm giving very practical halachas of business. Okay, so I would like you to get a Chumash, and also if you can get a hold of the sheet and follow inside, it'll be very, very helpful. This week, of course, is Parshas Bahar B'Chukoisai. It's also Chazak, which is the end of Sefer Vayikra, of course. But we're focusing, like I said before, on one pasuk. It's the first pasuk after. It's not Sheni in Bahar B'Chukoisai together. It's the first pasuk after Sheni in Bahar. It's Kapitel Chafei pasuk Yudalot. I'm going to read the pasuk, and I'm going to translate. Can everybody hear me? I need someone to tell me that they hear me, because I don't feel like I'm talking. Oh, very good.
Yeah.
I'm very good. Thank you. I'm going to
Bahar or B'Chukoisai?
Bahar, the first pasuk after Sheni in Bahar, but only Bahar. In other words, it's the second. It's the second part of what's going to be the first Aliyah this Shabbos. I'm reading the pasuk, and we're going to be analyzing this pasuk very technically. Okay, V'chisimkiru mimkor la'amisecha. If you will sell a sale to a friend, oy konai, or you're going to purchase a sale, miyada misecha, from the hand of your fellow, al toinu ish es amisei. Al toinu ish es amisei means don't rip each other off. Al toinu means do not inflate the prices. Al toinu, technically, al toinu means do not charge, do not exaggerate the inflation. Al toinu ish es amisei. Now I want you to know that, at least according to some opinions, from this pasuk we learn so many dinim. In other words, such a significant part of Choshe Mishpah is learned from this parsha. The halachas of kinyanim, all the halachas of kinyanim that apply for metaltalin, we learn from this one pasuk. If you look at the haftarah, I'm sorry.
Where is it again?
It's the first pasuk after Sheni, Kapitel Chafei pasuk Yudalit. I'm going to read it again, okay? If you will sell a sale to your friend, or you will acquire a sale from the hand of your friend, do not inflate the prices, do not create inflation, okay? This one pasuk teaches us an exorbitant number of dinim, an incredible number of dinim to do with kinyanim. If you look at the haftarah of Parshas Bahar, you will see that the haftarah of Parshas Bahar, it's from Sefer Yirmiyah. I don't have a chumash in front of me, but that's what I remember. It's from Sefer Yirmiyah, and the teichen of the haftarah is the idea of buying and selling and holding on to shtares, holding on to documents. This haftarah in Parshas Bahar is mentioned in Masechta Bava Kama. If you remember the Gemara that you learned, the Gemara brings rayas not just in the psukim and the chumash, also from some of the psukim of Parshas Bahar. But this one pasuk is the source of an exorbitant number of halachas. A huge number of halachas, at least according to some opinions, are derived from one pasuk in the Chumash. One single pasuk in the Chumash. So we're going to obsess on this pasuk. In other words, this Parsha class is on one pasuk. And I'm not saying anything exciting. There's no Ramban, there's no Even Ezra's, there's no Kabbalah. Pasha, basic halachas. Okay? So first of all, Rashi learns from this pasuk 3 dinim. Rashi learns in this pasuk 3. Now, I don't mind if you answer the questions as I go, but I want you to think also. The first halacha that Rashi learns is, if you have something to sell, sell it to a Jew. If you have something to sell it to a Jew. The second halacha Rashi learns, if you need to buy something, buy it from a Jew. Now, Chevre, you guys are Jews. And you know that the worst person to do business with another Jew, because there's not a Jew in the world that's not trying to save money. There's not a Jew in the world. I mean, what do the anti-Semites call people who haggle in business? Does anybody know? In the South, when people bargain, what do they call it?
Jew.
To Jew up or to Jew down. If you're selling, you're Jewing up. If you're buying, you're Jewing down. Jews are very hard buyers and sellers. They're always trying to save a dollar. Rashi Paskins, you have a similar Rashi in Mishpatim. If you have to sell something, sell it to a Yid. The implication is, even if it's harder to sell it to a Yid. If you have to buy something, buy it from a Yid, even if it's more difficult. Now, I know people in Crown Heights. Who will pay more and buy from a Yid. In fact, I know people in Crown Heights who will pay more to buy from a Lubavitcher, and they will lose money. They will lose money to sell to a Jew. They're really special people. They're very, very special. Not people who you would think are the biggest Hasidim. They may have trimmed beards and, be part of what many people would call Chabad light, but they have incredible Jew respect, self-respect, and they would never, if they have a choice at all, they'd rather buy from a Jew and sell to a Jew, even if it costs them money. Now, I'm not sure Rashi is saying that this is the halacha, you have to sell to a Jew and buy from a Jew even if you lose money. But certainly if it's inconvenient, if it's uncomfortable, if you have to buy, if at all possible, buy from a Jew. If you have to sell, if at all possible, sell to a Jew. And the spirit of these psukim is, even though it's more difficult, try to help a fellow Jew. Okay, there's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, which is so important. And you should know, you don't see people today, Kemat don't see people today, who practice this Mishnah. It's in the first Perek of Pirkei Avos, where the Mishnah says, Yihu aniyim b'nei beischa. It's a worthwhile Mishnah to know. Yihu aniyim b'nei beischa, which means we all have, and many of us have, goyes, right? There are people working in our house who clean our floors, who wash our dishes, who do our laundry, and in some cases look after our children, and we pay them. We're paying them, by the way, by today's standards, you're paying them pretty good. They're not paying $8 an hour anymore. They're being paid quite well. But they're from Mexico, or they're from the Far East, and or they're from Eastern Europe, from Poland, from the Ukraine. The Mishnah says, if you're in a position to hire someone to help you in your house with cleaning and laundry, Yiyu aniyim b'nei beischa. The Mishnah says in Avos, it's preferred, give it to a Jew. Now understand, if you're going to hire a Jewish lady in Crown Heights to clean your house, you can't work her like you work a Mexican. First of all, she's probably not physically as healthy. She's not probably as young. She's sensitive. She'll cry. So what ends up happening is, from your Mexican Goya, you can get in 8 hours an enormous amount done. You hire a Jew to do the same kind of work. It's going to cost you more money. You're going to get less done. The Mishnah says, Yiyu aniyim b'nei beischa. I'm going to be honest, full disclosure, that we have a Goya in our house. I wish my wife would get more Goyas, but my wife has old-fashioned hang-ups, but we do occasionally have non-Jews in our house. But my wife never hired a lady in Crown Heights to clean. I know nobody who actually does that. I know people who hire women in Crown Heights, for example, to look after elderly relatives, parents, grandparents. But the Mishnah says, if you have to hire somebody to clean your house, let it be a Jew. And it's a test. Because hiring a Jew, the Chazal say, Kana eved la'atzmei, kana adin le'atzmei. A person buys a Jewish slave, all he got is headaches. If you bought a Jewish slave, which is one of the many things discussed in our Parsha, it's so not worth it. It costs more money, you get less done, and you have to treat him better. On and on and on and on and on. Nevertheless, says the Mishnah, says the Torah, Yiyu aniyim b'nei beischa. But if you have to hire someone to help you in your house, let it be a Jew, even if it's not so easy. Here's a pasuk which is not talking about that. It's not talking about bringing someone to your home. It's talking about business. Buying and selling. People who buy and sell profit, obviously. And obviously the buyer wants to get it at the lowest rate. The seller wants to sell it at the highest rate. To a stranger, it's easier to inflate prices. I mean, I'm not talking about cheating, because stealing from a goy is also mederaisa, exactly like stealing from a yid. There is no difference whatsoever in Jewish law. Everybody should know this. There is zero difference in halacha whatsoever. You steal a pruta from a goy, it's the same as stealing pruta from a yid. And if you steal pachas meshava pruta that you can't pay it back, you're mechoyev malchus. There's no difference between leistigna from a yid whatsoever and leistigna from a goy. There's rare instances which are called toas akum, where the goy made a mistake that you don't have to go back and correct it. But lois signev is not don't steal from Jews. It's don't steal, period. So I'm not talking about theft. I'm simply talking about business. That it's when you sell and buy to people you know, it's more complicated, there's less profit. And the Torah says, do it anyway. Ki simkuru mimkar la misach. If something to sell to people near you. Or something to buy, and it could be inconvenient, and it can come back to bite you. But this is what the Torah says. This is a principle in Torah, and you should know lahavlaf of those. In the 1970s, when I was growing up, the African Americans in Brooklyn and New York tried to make such campaigns, and the expression that they used to use was "keep it in the family." That African Americans should shop at African American shops. They should use African American cleaners. They should have American grocery stores. Fortunately for Jews, it didn't work out very well. But I felt that it was a good campaign. If African Americans are not going to help African Americans, if black people are not going to help black people, who will? And the Torah says this about Yidden. You have to sell to a Jew. You have to buy from a Jew. So that's question. In question, what are that? 3 and 4. What's the first halacha of Rashi? If you sell to a Yid. What's the second halacha in Rashi? If you're buy from a Yid. And the last halacha in Rashi is you're not allowed to inflate prices. You're not allowed to overcharge. And you should know, this is called Eino'ah. Eino'ah is a big lav. It's a serious lav. It's a complicated halachas with a lot of ramifications. The Gemara says that a person who's over on Eino'ah, which means he inflates prices, it could be gvaldiko einshim. Now there are dinim about Eino'ah. There's dinim about inflating prices, which I will get to a little bit later. But just to give this all a practical context, it's known that there's always an accusation that before Pesach prices go up. I remember in the 1970s and 80s, Rav Avraham Hecht alav Shalom went to war. He was the head of the Igud Rabbanim, which was like a Syrian group about people raising prices before Pesach. And he went on the radio and he made a campaign to force grocers and shopkeepers not to raise their prices. It was a huge fight because the shopkeepers were very hurt by this and they reacted. There was a whole thing. I'm not going into specifics. I really don't know. But it is Hepech HaTorah to inflate prices artificially. In other words, because you live in Crown Heights and people shop locally, so you can charge more than that item is worth in a different neighborhood, or even in a Goyish grocery store 5 blocks away, instead of you're not allowed to overcharge, not allowed to inflate. I'm using the word inflation. Because what inflation does is it makes money worth less. Inflation is a snowball that only gets worse. You charge for products more than they're worth, the value of the money gets less, and it gets worse, and it gets worse, and it becomes a circle. Everybody starts inflating the prices until it's impossible to live. Just look at the difference between the value of a house in a Jewish neighborhood and the value of a house in a Goyish neighborhood, and you'll see what happens when people inflate prices. There's a Isser Deiraisa Ve'Noah. There's a biblical prohibition against inflation. Okay, I'm using the word inflation, which means charging a price which is not based on the laws of the market, but based on opportunity. Okay? So Rashi has 3 dinim, 1, 2, 3 from this pasuk. Okay? Sell to a Jew, buy from a Jew, and don't inflate prices. Now in the Gemara, from this pasuk, we learn many halachas. Okay? And these are very interesting halachas. The first halacha that the Gemara learns in this pasuk, and I'm not saying that this is according to all the deis, but according to some of the deis, is that ma'is einam koines. You cannot buy something by paying for it. Ma'is einam koines. This is an opinion. You cannot. If I buy a Danish from you and I pay you for it, the Danish isn't mine until I physically lift it up. This is a very interesting halacha, which is learned from this pasuk, that when you want to buy something, that's metaltalin. Okay, this is not about karka. Chevre, this pasuk does not talk about real estate at all. It's just talking about movable objects, a bicycle, a box of potatoes, a bottle of wine, a suit, anything that you can carry in one form or another, metaltalin. The din is, we learn from this pasuk, you cannot acquire something by paying for it. And there's a good reason why this halacha applies. Let's say I buy from you a supply of wheat, and I paid you for it. And then you have a fire, and you can save certain commodities that are in your home. The last thing you're going to save is the wheat that I paid for, because it's already mine. You don't care about me. So according to some opinions, it's midiraisa. That the Dana made a takana, that the Eibishter said, when you purchase an item which is movable from a place to a place, paying for it doesn't make it yours. Okay, so if you go into a store and there's one item left on a shelf, and you go over to the proprietor and say, here's money for that item, and another guy walks in at the same time and picks that item off the shelf, and he goes to pay for it, it belongs to the second guy, not to the first guy. Something which is metaltalin, something which is movable, does not become yours because you paid for it. You have to make a kinyan. And we learned that, I'm hoping you have the Chumash open in front of you. We learned that from the words, Oy konoi miyada misech. You have to take it from the hand of your fellow. And the Gemara learns from this, Dovar hanikne miyad liyad. Anything which I can hand you, I can't hand you a house. I can't hand you a piece of real estate. Now the question can be, can I hand you a truck? Can I hand you a ship? Okay? Can I hand you a cow? And then this becomes the complicated halachas of kinyonim when it comes to dvarim that are metaltalin. But I certainly cannot hand you a house. I can't hand you a piece of real estate. But if I can hand it to you, metaltalin, it doesn't become yours because you paid for it. It only becomes yours, we learn from this pasuk, when you physically make a kinyan. This is one of the halachas that the Gemara learns from this pasuk. Okay, so I want to make it clear. The first halacha that you learn from this pasuk is that money, mois einam kenes, dvarteira mois einam kenes, at least according to some opinions, minatayra, you cannot buy metaltalin by paying for it. That's halacha number one. The second halacha is, if you want to acquire something, you have to make a kinyan. You have to physically do something to the item. Okay, what's a kinyan? So there's basic kinyanim. This is the answer to question, I guess it's question 8 on your sheet. There's basic kinyanim. Kinyan number one, the most commonly used kinyan, you see this all the time, you just don't pay attention to it, is called chalipin. Okay, konim yad liyad. We learn chalipin from Sefer Rus, which is one of the oldest svarim in Tanakh. That Sefer Rus was a Yavama. She died childless. Her husband's name was Machloin, and whoever would marry her would inherit the estate that belonged to Machloin. So it says in Tanakh, it says in Sefer Rus, Sholav ish v'zeis lefonim b'Yisrael, Sholav ish nalev v'nasam l'reyehu. This guy wanted to give away the rights to Machloin, to give away the rights to Machloin's estate, and he did it what's called kinyan chalipin. Took off a shoe, and he handed it to the other guy. The shoe was like today, by a l'chaim, they use a yarmulke, they use a gartel. Or if you guys went to sell chametz, I mean, this year we didn't do it because we sold chametz online. But normally when you sell chametz, you come to the Rav gives you a piece of cloth which has a certain minimum shear, a beged, a yarmulke, let's say, you lift it up. And when he gives you the yarmulke, now he's the buyer, right? But he gives you the yarmulke, you pick up that yarmulke, and your chametz is now in his possession. He can sell it on your behalf. The most frequently used kinyan is chalipin. Business people who are from, who buy and sell, that's how they do it. We're selling $1 million worth of cans of Coke. So obviously the Coke is sitting in a warehouse. We'll agree on a price. We'll shake hands, and I'll give you a shmate. And when the seller gives the buyer the shmate. No, the seller gives the buyer the shmata. The buyer lifts it up. I think that's how it goes. The coke, wherever it is, now belongs to the buyer. But you have to do an act of kinyan. So the most classic example of kinyan is chalipin. That's what's used most frequently in the real world. People don't go around picking up cows, okay? You exchange it with a beged, with a chalipin. Now, besides for that, the methods of kinyan are as follows. Number one, lift it up. Hagbah, you have to lift it up. Lift it up a little bit, it becomes yours. If I'm selling you a shirt, you pick up the shirt, mamish a little bit, the shirt now becomes yours. It didn't become yours because you paid for it. It became yours because you picked it up. And that halacha would even work if I pick it up and it's in your house because I'm holding it in my hand. Now, what if it's too heavy to lift? What if it's too heavy to lift? If it's too heavy to lift, there's something called meshicha. I can drag it. I can drag it. Like if it's a goat or it's a chicken. I'll take the reins and I'll move it. And the halacha of meshicha is I have to move it so much space that it completely leaves the space it was in to a different space. Let's say it's a foot long. I have to move it 12 inches. It's called dragging it, meshicha, and then it becomes mine. Now, meshicha may not work into the shus of the moicher, but that's called meshicha. Now, what happens if it's so heavy? Not only I can't lift it, and I can't even drag it, then there's something called kinyan mesiro. Mesiro means I hand you the reins. Practically, that means if I gave you the keys to a car, would be a modern example of mesira. You're not going to push the car or schlep the car, a car's length. The handing over the keys is a form of kinyan mesira. So again, besides for chalipin, there's three classic kinyanim. The best is hagbah, to pick it up. The second best is meshicha, is to drag it. And the third best is mesira. Now, I'm not going into the dinim about which the shuyas. Not all of these kinyanim work in all of the shuyas, but these are the basic kinyanim. In addition to this, there's one more kinyan, which is very, very important, which has a number of ramifications. And that's called kinyan agav. I can give you 1,000,000 bottles of soda on real estate. Agav karka. If it's on real estate, I can acquire it. Derech kinyan agav, it's called. The land belongs to me, let's say, and I want to sell you 1,000,000 bottles of beer. So I say I am renting you this piece of land for 30 seconds. The piece of land becomes yours, and agav, you acquire all of the metalton that's being acquired. Now, why is this worth mentioning? Because agav has ramifications. Agav, if you're in an alley, if you're not on a street, you're in an alley, and you see a bicycle that's hefker. If you're within dollar amas of the bicycle, the dollar amas, it becomes yours. In a street, in a shus harabim, it wouldn't work. But in Tzidin shus harabim, in a simta, in an alley, in a side road, one of the ramifications of kinyan agav is that if it's not mamish to shus harabim, just by being next to it, I acquire it. This is a symptom of this idea of agav. When I'm in a side street, the land that I'm standing on is mine. When I move away, it's somebody else's. So if I'm standing next to this bicycle and it's a small little alleyway, so